Good evening. My name is Tim Markle. I am part of the Autism Society of South Central Wisconsin as part of the Education Committee, and this is part of our ongoing safety series. We're excited that you can join us tonight. This is being recorded, so please remember everything that everybody tells you before anything is ever recorded, and don't do any of those things. Tonight, we are going to be talking about summer safety. Matter of fact, our working title is Have a Safe Summer. And we very much are glad to have Molly Naef, who is a mom and also a researcher and also a dog owner and so many things that we are excited to have her tonight to be talking about summer safety. So Molly, why don't you go ahead and let us know how you want to ask questions or how you'd like us to roll tonight with you.
Sounds good. With a small group, I'm totally fine with questions as they pop up. Feel free to go ahead. If you have anything, you can also stick them in the chat if you're uncomfortable voicing those. No big deal. And please ignore, there is a lot of cuteness that runs back and forth and behind these, but I am what you should be watching and listening to, okay? Ignore the cuteness. I just saw one, super adorable, but please. Just kidding. Anyway, so I am Molly Naef. There are a lot of letters after my name, as I mentioned last time, but the most important ones are way at the bottom right there where it says I'm an autism mom. And this is what really got me through this journey and doing this research. And he is the reason behind all of this work. But I didn't want it to be just about my son with autism. I wanted everybody's kids to be safe as well. So I am now sharing this research that I've done with anybody that will listen and even people that won't. I just shout it from the rooftops. I do have a couple disclaimers I go through with every talk of mine, just because I want a few ground rules to be very clear. Absolutely nothing whatsoever as it relates to autism is off limits for me. Nothing's too embarrassing. There are no questions that are too uncomfortable for me. If they're uncomfortable for you, put them in the private chat. Last time, I think we talked about poop. So anything, we talk about it all. And truly that is my philosophy on managing our journey through the autism spectrum is we got to talk about it. It's safer when we talk about it. So I think that's important. So ground rule number one, nothing's off limits. Please ask away. Next is, this is truly my belief that every single child is unique. Every single child is very, very different. In our house, again, we call it on or off the spectrum. But we realistically think that every kid is different and unique and applies an individualized approach. It is important as we talk about this that although my research is exclusively autism focused, these behaviors are common for children without an autism diagnosis and without any diagnosis. So kids are inherently unsafe beings. That's just, they love it. That's what they thrive on, I think. I don't know. There are no interventions that completely replace your sound therapies that you've chosen for your child. Okay, these are meant to adjunct the therapies and the medical care that you're currently giving. These are just interventions that can go on top of that. So don't think that you've attended the summer safety series and now you don't have to do anything. This is not curative. This is meant to adjunct what you've chosen already for your child. And the final disclaimer I have is that we in our household use people first language. This is not meant to offend anybody that chooses not to use that language. And this is realistically because Kai has chosen people first language in the way that he talks about himself. In our house, Kai makes the autism rules because Kai is the one in the house with autism. So if you would like to address your child or your family member by other language, I am certainly open to that. But most of my presentations and research is presented in a people first language. And again, no offense, please. That's just how we are in our home. Objectives for tonight. I do want to talk again about elopement and wandering, but specifically on the interventions for those. It's super important, and I'll probably readdress it in the winter time because I think that's the other time it's super duper important. We're going to talk about drowning swim safety. We're going to talk about traveling and how you safety plan on the road and just general safety planning as well. And then we're going to talk about heat. It's getting real hot. I am not tolerating it. So we talked about this last time in the scare tactics section where we just talked about incidence and prevalence, but wandering is the most alarming behaviors in that it occurs also in about 49% of people with an autism diagnosis. And oftentimes it is the risk of injury, of drowning or traffic injury that is most concerning. And 26% of the time that children wander or elope, they are gone long enough to cause concern. Parents that need to call and have help finding their child. And so that is why it's very concerning for those of us that have kids that wander or elope. By wander or elope, again, I mean anytime the child leaves the vicinity that you have deemed safe. And they may or may not know what you have deemed safe. It could be leaving the room, wandering onto a hallway. It could be leaving the house. It could be leaving your eyesight. It could be wandering off onto the street. But it's anytime they run away, abscond, elope, any of those behaviors. So what interventions, and I should have prefaced this in the disclaimer, I should add this to the new series, is that when I mean scientific review and the interventions that I'm recommending, I'm not saying that these are the only things that can keep your child safe. These are the only things that I was able to find researched evidence on, going back in a 10-year review of 10 years of science and literature. And so I only make recommendations that I can find referenced and tested, but certainly there may be other interventions that are also safe for your child. But I'm only going to talk about those that I have a bag full of evidence on. So there are behavioral alarming interventions or prevention and emergency planning that can be done for elopement. Those are the three main categories. Elopement often has multiple motivators, multiple reasons that kids run away. And again, this is why I say this doesn't replace any therapies that you've chosen to be appropriate for your child, because you do want to learn and understand why they are running away so that you can address the behavior before it occurs. But while it occurs, are there things that you can do to keep them safer? So a behavioral approach is anything that you do to try to adjust the behavior. Here's a couple of different examples that we're going to talk about. Visual cues, that big old stop sign. Stop signs, the color red versus green for you can go and you should not go here. Any type of visual sign that is meant to show the child that this is a boundary. This can also be yellow caution tape around your yard. It can be, we use traffic cones for some time to indicate this is where our yard ends. And after the traffic cone is when you need to ask for an adult or get help. Visual posting of your house rules. And if your house rule is not to run away, go ahead and put that on there. You may have to use a picture to show that, maybe someone running out the door with the crossed off, but visually posting your expectations for rules. And in our house, we like to do it with the kids. We all agree on what rules are safe and appropriate. We think that increases their likelihood of following them if they agree that it's important. The next thing is modeling. We want to model the behavior that we'd like to see from our kids and our family. And so when I say modeling, you can do it in a couple different ways. I mean, you show the behavior. I don't run away, and you can announce it. I don't walk out of the house without telling people that I'm leaving. You can break things down into steps. If you want to talk about safely crossing the street, you can have a list where I stop here at the corner. I look to the left. I look to the right. I hold hands. Those type of breaking down into small mirrored steps, and you can show them success at each point of those steps. Practicing is very important. Hey, I'm at the door. It's time for me to stop and make sure mom knows I'm leaving. So those are all really good ways. Then the picture over here you have as someone reading a story. We can also make social stories or videos to show the behavior in an appropriate way. A social story is a simple story that you can make up yourself. They have apps that help you do it, but you can even just write it out and draw, stick figure pictures to say, when I wanted to leave the house, but I hadn't told mom yet. Should I run outside? No, I should stop and go get mom. Video modeling is the same thing. And you can actually include your child as the actor in these video models. When they do the behavior appropriately, you can take a video of it and say, here, remember when you did that, right? You stopped at the door and told mom it was time to leave. The other modeling behavior is similar to a modeling behavior is reinforcement, positive reinforcement, telling the child, great job, way to go. Thank you for stopping. You stopped at the door. That's what I wanted to see. So that's where the applause in the end comes in. I think it's really important that we encourage when they have done the behavior that we were hoping for, that we tell them that's the behavior I was looking for. Thank you very much. Oh, there was more to the slide. Blocking. Blocking is any physical barrier that you put that does not allow someone to leave that space. So it goes beyond the traffic cones, because I can still walk over the traffic cones, right? But the next step is I have a fence. My child runs and the traffic cones were not effective. I needed to take it a step further. He is now blocked from running. So anytime that you put a physical barrier, this is locks, window locks, essentially anything that the child can't open and manipulate on their own. Those are all blocks. That is all stopping the child from physically being able to go anywhere. I think it's important that we have or consider those on any emergency exits. A more challenging lock that's fast and easy for an adult to do in case of an emergency, but that the child maybe cannot reach. The next step is alarms and safety. Oh, there's more clicks to that. Okay. Alarms and safety devices come in multiple different options. So you have either a wearable option in which the child wears something that alarms, or something that can be placed on the home itself. When I say an alarm, I mean, this isn't going to stop your child. This is meant to alert you that the child is about to run or is running. Wearable devices are honestly not without debate. So consider this, your child is wearing something. Now you are able to track their location at all times. And sometimes you can listen in on these devices. Many kids don't have devices like that. And so whether or not you want to be able to give up your child's independence, and again, depending on the developmental abilities of your child, you can have this conversation directly with them. I know that is a concern for a lot of parents. Consider this though, most kids have cell phones. Those are all trackable. So be realistic. You can track your kids no matter what. And they're always glued to them, right? You know where they are. There are a lot of different alarms or tracking devices though that we need to consider. And so I'm going to go into detail on that in the next slide. But the other device that I have over on the far left-hand side is a door or window alarm. Well, these are actually marketed or meant for preventing someone from breaking into your home. But spoiler alert, they're also super effective at alarming you when people are trying to break out of your home. So I really do like these. There are a number of different door alarms that are available, some that have additional features and some that don't. Our first door alarm was a bit challenging. It only made an audible noise. The challenge there was that it actually frightened Kai. It made the noise right at the alarm and he stopped opening that door. We put it on the bedrooms at night so that I'm alerted early if he gets up to go to the bathroom so he doesn't wander when I'm asleep, because that's, I think, the most dangerous time for me. But what it did was backfired. He was afraid to leave his room. And so that was a bad thing because people need to go to the bathroom. So we got rid of that one quickly. And then we had another one with multiple alarms. That one alarmed to a central unit, kept in my bedroom. Great, it'll wake me up. The challenge there was I didn't know which door was opening. And there was only one central alarm, and up in my bedroom, if I was downstairs in the living room, I could hear it sometimes, but not all the time. And so the concern I had was also which door opened. Was the front door? Was it over here? We now have the Ring. I'm gonna throw out the name of an actual device company. The Ring is super popular. Everybody has those doorbells. You can watch your whole neighborhood when they walk their dogs. But the nice thing I like about the Ring is the Ring rings to my smartphone, my watch, and an audible alarm in my bedroom. And I can label each and every alarm with a separate name that I've chosen. So I can have bedroom, I can have back door, I can have front door, I can have garage door, I can have back gate. And it will actually read out which door when that's happening. This has been super helpful because we actually had an issue while we were carving pumpkins and I was fresh full of pumpkin goo and we had him dart out the front door and got to go check the front door. So even when you're full of pumpkin goo, even when you're in the shower, no matter where you are, you can get that and then you can set the audible alert at night. The other thing I really like for this is that you can set motion detectors are also part of these security systems. Motion detectors that can alert you to movement. I put it in the bedroom and I face and square it up so it's right where he exits the bed. So now I can also be alerted if we're not actually sleeping. He'll stay up all night and play around and then I can go in and reinforce that we need to be laying down. But it's also another earlier alert to the door opening. So that is alarming. The other important thing is you'll see, and I'll talk about a little bit more when we talk about emergency planning, is notifying emergency care providers in your area. And that is part of general safety planning. A lot of police departments do have safety interventions for people that wander or elope, and they apply it to maybe people with dementia, people with autism, people with other diagnoses in which wandering or elopement is a common occurrence. And so please have that conversation with your local police department that hey, I have a son who might wander or elope. I think that's very important. Tracking devices, I did promise I was going to go into additional information here. There are a lot of them on the market. There are a lot of different ones that you can do, and they are all covered, to my knowledge, from the Children's Long-Term Support Waiver. Depending on what county you're in, though, they may or may not pay a monthly charge, depending on which one you choose to get. There are devices that are managed by the police department. There are devices that are managed by you. There are devices that might be challenging to wear. You see there's a watch type device on the left-hand side. There's a device in the middle. This is the one we use that has a magnetic pin closure, similar to if you were to try to steal clothing from a department store, that requires a magnet to remove. And then there are some others that have different vests, shirts, things that you can tuck into pockets. There are some that sit in the sole of a shoe. There are some that are anklets. When choosing a tracking device, again, if you should choose to, and again, you have to weigh the risks and benefits of whether or not you're comfortable with having a device that can track your child's location, is whether or not you want control of knowing where your child is versus somebody else. So Project Lifesaver is what we have in Dane County, and I know Columbia County. Project Lifesaver is a wearable tracking device, but the information about your child's location and whereabouts goes to the police department and not to you. And so if you would rather have somebody else be aware of where your child is, that's perfectly reasonable. But if you're a controlling personality like myself, I have chosen a device in which I can see my child's location. And so we've chosen Angel Sense. The next thing is, can your child wear the device? Is it wearable in multiple fashions? And some of these companies will let you test out a device for a trial period to see, because it's not helpful if they just remove it. So again, the Angel Sense in the middle, they also have a waterproof case, but it's a pin closure. So we pin it to close. You can pin it inside of a pocket so they can't remove it. But they also have a vest and a shirt that has a pocket that's tucked right here where the child can't reach it. I know the GeoBit has multiple different wearable options as well, including that tag closure, including clip-on, similar to a Fitbit. Again, there are some that sit in the sole of a shoe. So the child walks on it all day. And so if they don't notice the difference between the two, they might be totally comfortable wearing it. The other thing is, what additional safety features do you want to have in this device? I can speak to, again, Angel Sense because I know it, but some of them do have two-way calling. I can push a button and talk to me. I can push a button on my phone and talk to him. Angel Sense also rings to my smartphone and my watch, so I get alerts when he is not in the set designations that I have for him. You set the parameter or the ratio of how big you're comfortable with. And so like I have it a 1 block radius in our home, a 1 block radius in the daycare. And if he leaves that area, it says, whoa, he left daycare. And I can also set his normal like bus route or other things. I haven't, because so much has changed. I have no idea if he's going to follow the bus route, but I get alerts every time he leaves those locations that I've set. And again, I can label them specifically for what they are and where they are. And so I have that control over that. Those that do have those additional features do have usually monthly service charges. And so that's something to consider as well, is whether or not your county covers those minimum monthly payments, and if that's something that you're willing to cover yourself. The other nice feature about Angel Sense that I've enjoyed is that there is Wi-Fi tracking. So if you're in a large building and you're not able to see exactly where the child is, and then it makes an audible noise if you're in a crowd. My child is shorter than most people in a crowd because he's still a child and not an adult yet. And I think he'll be pretty tall though, once all is said and done, which will be helpful for me. And, but I can set an audible alert. He's right here according to the device and I can't find him. But I can set the audible and then I can hopefully hear it ping to me. The other really nice thing is I can set a team of emergency responders. If he truly is missing, I hit one click button. It texts my parents, it texts my husband, it texts everybody that I've identified as being important and needing to know about this. This is super closely associated with elopement, drowning, and it scares all of us, I think, and well, I mean, it should. But most incidents of child drowning for a child who has a comorbid diagnosis of autism are related to an elopement event. The child left without parents' knowledge or without parents' permission and was found in or near water and or had drowned. So the reason I bring this up in right after elopement is because they're so closely linked, but there are other things to consider when we're talking about this. One is safety planning, which we're going to get into in a minute, is that more frequently than children off the spectrum, they've identified that children on the spectrum are very tied to water. They love it. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. Oh, who wouldn't love it though, but to be honest, but they really are attracted to water. And so that's something that we need to consider. When we're talking about prevention of drowning, there are a couple things that are very important. And the first one is water competency. That's an actual thing. I had no idea. It's swim class. All right. It's swim class that focuses on very specific things though. Focuses on awareness of dangers of water, focus on very specific swim skills, and focuses on the ability for parents to respond when there's concern. The specific swim skills that are taught in water competency classing is the ability to surface to the top of the water. So when plunged, they can get up, the skill to propel oneself forward, the skill of treading water, and how to safely enter and exit water. Safely entering and exit sounds weird, right? But it's about safely maneuvering stairs, safely maneuvering a rocky shoreline or location, and then safely exiting in that same manner. Not just jumping, although that's what ours do. Supervision is obviously key for a lot of these things. And that's just having an adult who's aware of the surroundings. The cell phone is down, their attention is on the child around the water. And it can be really challenging in our technology driven age to actually do that, right? But it's very important that an adult is in charge of that child at all times. The one thing I do say is that when we're talking about supervision, if there is more than one adult and you need a break and you want time off, having, I call it handoff. Dave had a good name for it too. Communicating, not just visually, but verbally. I'm taking a break. You're on duty. You're watching. And sometimes when you're doing it for a long time, you do get like a cue or a symbol, but some way to indicate that I'm off, you're on. I'm stepping away for a moment and making sure that you're handing off that supervision. Barriers, again, that's blocking, right? That's scientifically proven. That's fences, that's borders, that's alarms on pools if you have one yourself, any type of physical barrier that you can put between you and that child. Having a rescue plan, knowing CPR yourself, or knowing where a phone is, or how to call and get help. Knowing to call 911, knowing to initiate CPR, knowing to get somebody to get you some help. And then the other important thing that we all forget because we're all exhausted after water play is that if you do have a pool, if you do have a child's pool, if you do have any type of water play, that you're removing those toys after use. You want to remove that pull, any additional pull towards the water because they don't need it. They already want to go play with it, right? So taking all those toys out just prevents them from wanting to go in and get that toy and play with it. Covering pools, but just out of sight, out of mind for a lot of that stuff. Giant tail going through the door. Travel is fun, right? All the time. It's never with stress. Nobody ever gets burnt out at the airport. Nobody ever gets stressed out on big long car rides. Travel is always fun and enjoyable and has no downsides. Travel. No, it kind of sucks sometimes. And you always forget to pack something. And it's always like the most important thing that you can't find anywhere else. Travel is challenging for all of us. All right. Again, not just a spectrum problem, an everybody problem. But there are ways that we can make travel easier. We had an adorable travel excursion to Disney World, and it was so awesome. And we overplanned everything. And we packed a giant suitcase of specifically distraction toys and gum and gummy things so that ears would pop and, headphones and all sorts of stuff. And then we got onto the airplane, and lo and behold, the travel magazine had an entire article on how to travel with a child with autism. And my mom and I were like, yes, let's read it. And then we looked over and he slept the entire time. And I was like, well, that was a waste. I read that article for nothing and I threw it away. And so now I have no information for you because I threw it away. Just kidding. I do have information for you. But we just think it was so funny. Like, we're going to read this, and we cover to cover, sharing information about it. And he slept the whole time. And I'll be honest, the white noise he just went out like a light. We returned from that vacation, put a white noise machine in his bedroom, stuck it on his door where we were making all the noise. Slept so well. Oh my goodness. So that was a sleep tip, has nothing to do with travel. But anyway, we just brought some of that home with us anyway. Social stories, we talked about those. Planning and preparing your child that a travel event is going to occur is very important. Countdown calendars are great ways to visualize that. But just springing them with like, hey, we're leaving for vacation right now. It's scary. Don't do that. Let's plan ahead. Let's talk about it. Let's count down the days. Let's put it on a calendar. Let's visualize it in some way, but let's also have a social story about it. What types of things are we going to see and hear at this place that we're going to? And talk about it frequently. Show them videos of that location if you can. Disney World's great because there's videos all over the place. You can show them. It's busy, it's chaotic, it's very colorful, it's loud, but it's really awesome. All right, and so talking about it in a positive way is very good. Very clear rules. While we're on vacation, these are our expectations. Just like you have the posted rules at home, have posted and talk about those rules before you travel and before you plan. You're always gonna have an adult with you. This is your person. I love brightly colored clothing for travel events. Again, my kid's not tall enough to see through a crowd, but maybe I can make him bright enough, right? Fluorescent colors, things that attract or will reflect sunlight are all really great options. Preferably colors that you think other people aren't going to wear, right? Neon green, unless you're in a construction zone, people don't wear it very often. But I think it's really important that we have those bright colors, something that is going to identify your child as something different. We also, when we were at Disney World, used very specific Mickey Mouse ears. So something to consider, but oh wait, everybody else had them on too? No, but ours were different, okay? We had Monsters, Inc. ones that looked like Sully for Kai, because he's a huge Monsters fan. Mine was Little Mermaid, of course. Anyway, so thinking about that, and remembering what your child has put on that day. Take a picture in the morning. That's great. Take a picture when you're traveling and have it on your phone. Then this is what he's wearing today. This is what he looks like. This is exactly what he looks like today. I think that's very important because you're going to be in different locations that are unusual and strange for you. And you might not know where your child is thinking about going. And trust me, they're thinking about going somewhere if they're elopers. So I think it's important to also do that. Bright clothing, make it distinctive, take a picture of it. That communication we talked about, calling ahead to hotels, calling ahead to locations, finding out what types of services they might have or provide. A lot of places will surprise you. Some won't, unfortunately, but a lot of places will. Hey, I have a child that's going to be coming and he is autistic. And I would like to know if there are certain things that I should be wary about, certain things that should be concerned about, or things that I need to think about. Some of the door alarms that you have, you can bring with you. They use Wi-Fi, so you'll have to call ahead and make sure that you have Wi-Fi capabilities. And they also use stickers on them, though. So I keep a separate one for the front door of a hotel room and adhere it with just double stick tape so that it's removable. And I'm not reusing that because otherwise they're really hard to pull down. So it's something to consider is you can take your home unit and you can connect it in a different location as well. So thinking about those alarms, whether or not you want to bring them with you. The GPS trackers are they still work, even if you're in Florida, even if you're in other locations. The only thing I will say about those is depending on the one that you choose, if they use cellular service as their tracking device, and you're going to remote locations, they may not be effective. So call ahead and identify if there's bad cellular service in there. Up north wouldn't have worked, Chris. That was not going to get service out there. That brings me to safety planning. I told you multiple times throughout this, I was going to talk about it. So now I have to because I promised earlier. Recent pictures, physical descriptions, I think are important. So when I talk about safety plans, I legit mean let's write it down. I mean, let's have it in writing, a physical copy, an electronic copy, things that you can share with daycare, with school, with people that are watching your child, maybe for the first time, maybe for the umpteenth time, they can forget things, okay? And with the police department, again, with any location your child is gonna go to, I think it's important to have a safety plan. These are the essential items I think are important in a safety plan, but this also, again, isn't without research. This is also something that the National Autism Association has come up with. I'm gonna show you a picture here in just a moment, for the information that they identify and have on this content. But realistically, this is not an all-inclusive list. If there is something important about your child, put it on here, put it on some type of written down plan. Look at the plan every once in a while. things change, kids change, interests change, new behaviors come up that are unsafe or scary. So I think it's really important that we readdress these things. So a recent picture, and they're written down physical description. Your contact information, where you can be found, where you can, where they can get a hold of you, and a backup, right? Unless you're me and have it on your watch on your phone and like it randomly shows up on your computer, make sure that you can be found. The preferred locations that your child will go to when lost. If your child frequently goes to the same place, put it on the paper. Make sure everybody knows he's going to go to that pond right over there, because I can see it too, and it looks fun. You know, he's going to go to this park. He's been found at this person's house very frequently. Safety behaviors, whether or not your child hits, whether or not they eat non-food items or pico we talked about before, any behavior that you know already is a safety concern for your child. Any medical needs, any diagnoses that are important, or medications that they might need or might be missing. Again, there's that cute kid in the background, ignore him. Any signs of distress. What does your child do when they're upset? Do they clench their fists and you know something's coming? Is there a sign or a trigger that somebody else can identify that this child is upset and in distress, especially if they're nonverbal or unable to communicate that in their own way? For Kai, it's this tenseness in his chin and his neck. And you know he is he's about to hit you, first of all, and then he will announce the word ouch right before he hits you. So that's on our papers, clenched mouth and neck, and yells ouch, he's about to hit you. But I think it's important too, like if there's any other sign of distress, if your child starts to hand flap, if your child starts to hit themselves, if your child in any way, shape, or form shows any physical sign of distress, make sure you write down, or any verbal sign of distress. Likes and dislikes, things that will encourage them to come to someone, maybe an emergency responder that they don't know. How to approach your child. Very important on our safety plan is do not run after me if I am actively running. First of all, he's fast, he's young, he will outrun you. I don't care how fit you are, all right? I have run 5Ks with that child. Trust me, he will outrun you. But so how to approach? Never chase after him. Always use clear language, short language, stop, come here, and authoritative language for my child. Again, this is about our safety plan. If your child uses a communication or picture exchange communication, include those pictures at the bottom. So here is an example from the National Autism Society safety sheet. And I put the link in here as well. But this is exactly what theirs looks like. I was told once it was called the SNAP program, but right now on their website, I haven't seen the word SNAP. But this is the one we use with the police department. So McFarland has this on electronic and paper form, and they come up and remind me to update this annually, which is great, because then I can make copies and I can send it off to everybody I know. They also have a system here. Again, I'm plugging McFarland like I do in every single talk, but they have a system. If you sign permission, all of this is voluntary information that you share or don't share. But you can also sign permission. They will automatically upload the school photo from that year. So I don't even have to update the photo. Are you kidding me? It's great. I just have to look through all the written information. So it really appeals to my lazy side, which is actually deep down for me, as we all know. But I do have one. It's usually there on Sundays. But I think this is great. Write it down in any format that works for you. It'd be a diary, a how to know me sheet, anything that gets that safety planning going. Communication, again, having that plan for handoff, making sure that you have communicated to whoever is to be in charge of your child that it's your turn, you are now in charge. This next part can be really hard to do. I'll be honest. It can be really hard to do, especially in the beginning of your journey. When you go through the stages of grieving that everybody does, because we're human and it's okay to be human. Even as an autism parent, when you have to step up to the plate right away. But people go through periods of anger, denial, strong feelings about getting a new diagnosis for their child. And so the next ones can be challenging, but I encourage you to do it. Just do it. All right. It's like Nike. Communicate with caregivers, neighbors, everybody about your child's safety concern. My son could run away. If you see him without me, please let me know. when I did this, people are really willing to help out, right? I also communicate non-verbally. I have a sign on my front door that says there's a child with autism here. If approached, so in case the fire department comes, he may run away. He may appear not to be listening. And it spells that out, and I have it on my minivan too. In case we're in an accident, people need to know without me being able to tell them, it's, God forbid something should happen to me, which I am not invincible, unfortunately. But I want that information clear. I want people to know he might not be able to talk to them. And the nice thing was, we had the police come over looking for a neighbor or something like that. I can't even remember the instance, but he's like, oh, I do have to finish this up, and I'm coming back to talk to you because you have this sticker in your sign and we have a safety program. And I'm like, I'm already signed up. Don't worry, go find that lady. So it's great, but it worked out really well. And then contact your local police department. All right, please contact your local police department. I've had great contacts with our police department here in McFarland. Again, come to McFarland, it's great. But I've had also not so great contacts with police departments. I had one, honest to God, it wasn't where we lived, but it was where our child went to daycare. And I said, hey, there, just so you know, there's a child in your community who does wander and elope. He is autistic. He is minimally verbal. I just want to make sure you're aware so that if you see a child matching this description, and they're like, oh, it's fine. We did an autism class 3 years ago. We all know about the autism. We're fine. No worries. They wouldn't take a physical description, nothing. I was like, oh, come on, please. Please, please, please just take a little bit of information from me. But where we lived in Columbus, the great thing is they had a paging system for all of their emergency responders. So they took down a matching physical description, contact information for me, and they knew that if I called, they put out this massive text alert to all the police officers. So it wasn't as like robust as, you know, having a safety sheet on hand and on deck, and also Molly coming and talking to the police department to make sure that they know who she is and will look out for her child. But it is still robust. And so I think that's important too. Heat. It's hot out there. Very hot. It's very uncomfortable. It's very sticky. Went to a gym today with no air conditioning. That should be illegal, but it's not. I'll call somebody. I think it's important for us to identify the symptoms of heat exhaustion and impending heat stroke. That is an elevated temperature, which is weird because we're not taking their temperatures when we're out, right? But their skin is cold. They're hot, but they're cold. They have goosebumps. They're weaker, tired, fatigued. They don't want to run and play. Kids should want to run and play. They complain of a headache. They are sweating despite that cold skin. They have incredible thirst. They complain of muscle cramps. They complain of nausea and or are vomiting. A couple of those, I don't know if you caught it, require the ability to communicate inner feelings in our body that may not be felt or understood in the same way. And so I think it's very important that we identify those that we can see as very important, but those impending signs like the cheeks are getting red and flushed, right? Or they've been running for a while and you can't remember the last time they had water. So in the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about prevention, but I think it's important to kind of hold off on those for just a moment because headache, nausea, muscle cramps, two of those are pain sensations, or as you and I interpret them, pain sensations. And one, nausea, like what kind of sensation is that? That's a deep, weird feeling that I can't even describe to you, but I have a word for it, right? I know that word is nausea. But if I don't have a word for it, if I can't quite explain what that feeling is, I might not communicate it to you. And then unfortunately that one ends in vomiting, which is gross. So I think it's important for us to identify not every child experiences pain as you and I experience pain. They don't express pain the way you and I express pain. And there's EMG and MRI evidence of this, that they don't express things the same way you and I do. They may not say, ow, when something hurts. They may not pull their hand away when something's hot. And so it's really important that we identify those physical signs that we can also see, but start to teach them about their body parts and don't teach them about pain by inflicting pain. That's weird. But, you know, start to talk about my head feels owie. Or if you know that they have an owie, say that's owie, that's pain, that hurts. Use those words to describe when you actually know that they have pain. Maybe they're holding something or maybe they have a visible cut. Kids are higher risk if they are overweight, if they are on certain medications, psychotropic medications, any heart medications, God forbid kids are on them, but they are, some of them are, and it's so sad. But any medications, I realistically think it's a good idea to just consider your child high risk. They have a sunburn already, because you forgot. I do forget to put on sunscreen, even though I'm a ginger. You would think I would never, ever, ever forget that. I do. They're already ill. Maybe they're not expressing that sign of being ill, or they're unable to communicate their symptoms, right? If they can't tell you, then they're at a higher risk of things getting more severe. So my big thing is prevention, but the preventions and the treatments are essentially the same thing. Okay. Provide shade when possible. It can be hats, it can be umbrellas, it can be any type of shade. Trees are great though, because they have been there longer. And so they've been cool in that ground for a longer time, right? That umbrella, it's like just there. Hydration, including snacks that are hydrating. Vegetables and fruits that are high in water content, melons, berries, those types of things. Those are great snacks to take with you. So that you are hydrating in some manner. I also think that water is fantastic. If you're really in a sweaty location, you're really, really, really hot, electrolytes are great too, Gatorades. And they also have like Gatorade low sugar if you're concerned about calorie content, but they're kids, they're gonna run out. Application of cool compresses, cool wet compresses, or just cool compresses, especially to the hot spots. And anywhere on your body that you stick your hands when it's too cold, that's a hot spot. Your armpits, I just did it, you know, like the superstar. Groin area, anything close to your core, okay, is going to be a hot spot. Anywhere you would take a temperature is also like a hot spot. So underarms are great for that. Light breathable clothing. Of course, if you're traveling, it's also got to be brightly colored, right? Okay. But light breathable clothing, make it cool, make it loose. Nothing form fitting. Although I do love those UV shirts. Like I don't use them anymore in the heat, because I do worry about those. Those are hot, and anything that will wick moisture away is fantastic. Fans, they make those cute little bottle fans and they spray water. I don't go anywhere without them. And every time I see one, I buy a new one because they break constantly. They are a huge investment, but they're great. Water activities, taking the pools, splash pads, getting that sprinkler going. Those types of things are going to externally cool the body too as well. There's resources. There's other people out there that you can go to. Tim knows all about them. Your children's long-term support waiver case manager is an excellent resource for anything safety related. Then get the funding for you. And then the regional centers. Oh my God, the regional centers. Please go to the regional centers. They're fantastic. And they can get you to the services and even the safety centers. And that leads me to the end of what I had time for tonight. Holy cats, this one went. I only have a couple minutes for questions, but I will answer any questions I didn't have time for. My email is here. But please, 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 if you have anything that you want to ask about what we talked about, or as Tim points out, it's not just what we talked about today. You can talk about anything, preferably safety, but we talked about poop last time.
We did talk about poop, and we talked about dogs earlier. And so really, there is no question that's off topic. Now, I am wondering, Molly, do you have any like sort of ideas? I have some thoughts, but I know that some of our families, as we were talking about going on vacation, that about the last thing they want to do is tell their kids about something exciting coming up, because the kid is going to think about that and only that, and is going to remain excited and is going to be. So do you have any idea about how to balance prepare them, but I really don't want to spend a month hearing every single day about it? Do you have any ideas?
No, I totally agree. And so you know your child best, and you know how long you're willing to tolerate listening to it, right? And that's why I like the countdown calendars, because it's visual that it's not time yet, but we're still going to talk about it. And we do it all the time, right? I mean, we realistically do it at Christmas time, thanks to, you know, we started that, any day now, it's darn near Christmas time for local department stores. So, I mean, realistically, we do prep for things long-term, but I get it. Vacations are challenging. And so, you know your child best. If you want to talk about it for only 2 days, start talking about it for 2 days. I just think it's important that it's not the day of. They're going to see you pack. They're going to let on to your anxiety about preparing for travel. Whether or not you admit it, they know. So I think it's important, but that's why I like those countdown calendars, because it gives you a visual representation, and maybe make it a reward in itself. A sticker every day that they get to pick out and place. And so that gives them something fun to look forward to. Make the calendar itself fun. You can also even make an advent calendar. If they have blank boxes, you could fill it every day with a different trinket about the place you're about to travel to, with small amounts of toys or candy. So like every day they're getting a small reward, and we're talking about this trip. But
See, and I really like that, because then they can focus on that next day.
Yeah.
And they can focus on that reward that leads to the bigger trip, but it's a way to get them unstuck. I love that.
And that's why I think advent calendars work so well for us around Christmas time. I mean, actually, to be honest, I think my kids like the advent calendar more than the actual Christmas. Like every day it's like Santa doors, but their grandparents spoiled them and got this big giant monstrosity that lights up, plays music, and has a spinning Santa. And so every day it's a different Christmas carol, and candy just pours out of this thing, and it's Santa doors, and then it's Christmas. They're like, Christmas.
Well, I mean, if you want to get your kids off of that, just let me know. I'd be more than happy to take that off your hands.
We love them. We just love them. But no,
that sounds great.
But again, it comes down to, I mean, you know your kids, if they really can't handle talking about it ahead of time, talk about things that are somewhat related, like flying on an airplane, getting on a bus, however you're traveling there. Like, hey, have you ever been on a long car ride? Those types of things are small ways to prep that's coming without sharing where you're going to. But you can have social stories about what it's like to travel on an airplane, to just start prepping in small pieces for that trip. Who can ever actually be prepared for their first time at Disney World, though? Like,
no. It blew me away, and I was as old, well, younger than I am now, but I wasn't young. But it was still blew me away.
Kai was on the big screen for the Monsters Incorporated show too. He was 18 months old and is literally like the source of, like, it's his whole room is still Monsters Inc. He's 9 now. It's still his favorite movie, and he was on the big screen.
Yeah, don't blame him. There's a lot worse movies you could choose. I love that movie.
Oh, they're great. We love them.
The other thing that you brought up that I think is really important to highlight is when you were talking about taking those natural opportunities to teach your kid about safety, about I'm at the door, I don't leave without telling anybody. I'm at the edge of the street, I am looking, and modeling and talking, because we can naturally get into this flow of just going about our lives, and we can get really busy. Yeah. But taking those moments to point them out so that our kids can start connecting it into their brains, into their neurons is so important. I love that point.
To be honest, so modeling is scientifically proven, lots of papers on it. But the other really nice thing is that modeling is a really important tool for learning and developing speech. And so when you have children that are speech delayed and you talk about what you're doing, you're introducing them to a lot of different kinds of language, right? And, I'm cutting this pepper. So you're naming an object, you're also naming the thing you're doing, you're also talking about yourself. And so, I think it's also great for that purpose as well. But yes, absolutely. It's a challenging concept or thing to do, is to think about everything that you're doing. So you can write it down. It's called task analysis or behavioral task analysis. You break down something that you want to teach in the very minute step by step. And to be honest, when I've done this before for toothbrushing, bathing, other things, I have to do it in with a piece of, okay. So I pull it out of the drawer. I take the cap off. I open the toothpaste. I put the toothpaste on, break it down into each and every step too, so that you can plan for when you're going to walk and talk about it. All right. What things are really important? What am I actually doing here? Because it becomes so routine for you. And again, that's what you're trying to do, is build routine. They love routine. All kids love routine. I love routine. I love doing the same thing every day, unless it's food. I like to eat different things. But other than that, I feel, we all thrive on knowing what's going to happen.
It's that sense of safety. It's that sense of security. I mean, there's times where we like to be surprised. I mean, that's kind of enjoyable for a lot of people. But at the end of the day,
So much.
I want to know that my house is there and that
Yep.
my bed is there. And
Yep.
I want that sameness.
Yeah, I think it's important. And so, yeah, I think it's great. What other, I don't mind staying too. Tim's got a hockey game and a quesadilla to make, but again, email's there, please use it, abuse it. No topic, nothing's off topic. But go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead and ask, please. Don't make me try to pretend, that I know what I'm talking about. Please feel free to ask. Yes, Nancy.
Tim, this is Nancy Alar. Molly, can you comment about Wings for All for
Wings
travel
for All.
preparation?
I do not know Wings for All.
Oh, this
What
is it's a program for helping people get kids especially get used to the processes that happen in airports
Of flying.
and
I love it.
And my a person that we help support, who's an adult on the autism spectrum, who was anticipating a plane trip, participated in this 2 years ago and wants to do it again. What they do is, and it was set up by Archdane County in at the Madison Airport. They bring a plane, they park it on the loading place, and then the kids go in. They go through security. They have to do all the security stuff. And then they get on the plane. They sit in their seats. They are buckled in. They listen to the chat from the stewardess. And then they exit the plane, go back through how to get out of the place. And that's a practice on going to an airport.
This is put on by the ARC at the ARC.
It was the Wings for All is a separate nonprofit that comes in at the request of other local nonprofits, I believe.
Yep. Yeah. And you
But
can.
the kids get a T-shirt and they have goodies at the end and stuff like that.
Awesome.
So I think, yeah, if you
open,
Google Wings for All.
Yeah. It looks like it's open to anybody with any type of intellectual or developmental disability. Right. So it's not our kids, which I love too. I like inclusivity. It is the arc.org that you can get, the arc.org that you can get this information, and you can actually request that your local airport become a part of the program directly with a click. That's amazing, Nancy. Thank you. No, I did not know about this.
Okay, good. Well, you could add that. They did it here 2 years ago, but as far as I know, they didn't have any plans for the future, at least not now.
Apparently, all of their programs are currently on hold due to COVID, but I'm sure they're going to get us up and running again. But this is fantastic. And they also have additional air travel resources. I think this is great. Thank you so much for that. I think we should do more of this, but that's a great way to model that good behavior, right? It's a great way to know what they're going to be able to experience and see, but in a much better way, rather than me just talking about what you're going to see, showing pictures about what you're going to see. Be present and experience what you're going to see. And that's awesome.
Well, and especially experiencing the distractions that you're going to see. Is airports, like you said, are very busy places. Very loud, very noisy, very people-filled usually.
They're so people-y.
And so being able to experience that would be wonderful.
Well, what I feel bad about too is that I know my kids pick up on my own anxiety, and airports are very anxiety-producing locations for me. I don't mind flying. I love flying. Jumped out of airplanes. I don't mind. But what I do mind is being in that people-y location and everybody's super close and they're all rude. Why is everybody so rude in airports? Like, why can't we just be nice? We're all going on vacation, right? Or did you come back and now you're mad? But I try really, really hard to suppress that as much as possible and find ways to let things go and help my kids guide through that too, because, we're all stressed and, I'm using bad words. Who knows what's going on when I'm in an airport.
Well, and I think that goes back to Molly, though, of not just doing the calming down, but talking to your kids about how you're calming down, about the fact that, there's a lot of people around. I'm kind of getting a little bit nervous.
Mhm.
I don't like that feeling of nervousness where everything feels squished. So I'm going to breathe a little bit. I'm going to stretch my shoulders. I'm going to think about other things. Is talking them through about how we deal
Yeah.
with those emotions, because a lot of times that doesn't come naturally.
Let's normalize emotions,
Yes.
right? Because we're all feeling them and we can all have them and we can all talk about them.
I
Totally.
think too, I really want to thank you both, Molly and Tim. This was really helpful and there was a lot of good information. And I just really appreciate, Molly, your philosophical approach to really engaging children on the spectrum or not, and really getting their input in how, how best to really cut the peppers for the taco night. How, what is the best thing? How do you feel most comfortable holding onto your luggage? Really being inclusive about, I'm in charge of my life.
Yeah.
And I really felt that throughout your entire presentation. There was an element that it was just really child-centered. And that I just really believe is what makes the world move forward. It was really an honor. I'm so glad that I got this link. And I'm rooting for change and progress. It's coming.
Oh, it is.
Thank you.
A friend of
It
mine
is.
calls it Molly's personal empire to make children safer. And he does like a whoa, after, like, it sounds, which I love about that. But you're absolutely right, Chris. Giving kids, even if it can't be complete and total control, giving them the ability to control certain parts of the situation engages them more, right? And that keeps them there with them, and it keeps them running away. It keeps everybody happy. We try to do it as much as humanly possible. There are certain times you don't give them that control, but one of the areas I think is really awesome is that rules. When I talked about that, one way you can do it, you can lengthen out the deciding of family rules by having first a discussion of family values. What types of things are really important family values? Do you like a loving environment? Do you like a strict environment? Do you like a clean environment? Is cleanliness is important to you?
Mhm.
You sit down and you have this back and forth conversation about, what do we as a family think are our most important values? Is respect important? And how do you show respect? And so once you do that, we say, okay, let's take these values and make them apply to our rules. And so the rules around the house are, respect was most important for everybody across the board. We couldn't disagree on that. Hitting, kicking, physical violence, and naughty words, those are off limits. And so that's a rule. But the kids chose that. And then, okay, if you do one of those things, what should the consequences be? And so they're not in charge of everything, although I feel like they run the house. They're involved in that as well. There are some rules I inserted. This is a mom insertion, and it's an important one. But you're right. You should involve them as much as possible. Every kid wants to be a part of this, a part of that family unit.
Hey, Molly, that's a really, really good thing to put into practice. One of the things that I would have a question about, though, I am talking with a mom who has a daughter who's like 19, and they had rules like that. And now that she's an adult, she is really puzzled why the rest of the world doesn't follow those rules.
Mhm.
And when people do mean things or like steal some stuff, and she really struggles with that and trying to process these things, because these kinds of things keep happening. Can you address that?
A bit. My kids get frustrated with it too. Actually, that's one of the challenges I've had we just recently gone back to daycare. We've gone through almost a full week of going to daycare. And day one, all I heard was, kids are too loud and they don't follow the rules. And it frustrates me and it makes me mad. And so it can be challenging. But one of the things that can be reinforced is that the values that you guys chose and the rules that you guys chose, those are your personal and your family rules and values. Other people have different values. Other people have different things that they hold steady. It can be challenging. one of the things I've tried expressing to my off the spectrum son who has the ability to communicate those feelings is if somebody's doing it outside of your comfort zone, you can speak up for yourself. And so the other day, bless his heart, he doesn't, the bad words is a huge thing for him. He does not like bad words. And so he's got a friend that uses bad words. And he said, stop, you're using the bad words again. I'm giving you one more warning. He's 6. Okay, he's 6, going on 46. We've talked about lies. And then he comes home 10 minutes after leaving to go play with his child. And they said, what's going on? He goes, well, I warned him once that I wasn't going to tolerate the bad words, that they make me feel bad. And he did it again. And so he's in timeout from my friendship. And so I'm back home. And also tomorrow when he comes over, it's a 2-day timeout from my friendship. And he will. So, I mean, you have to set your personal boundaries, things that you will not tolerate from other people, that you're willing to stand up for in a safe manner. But you also have to understand that other people don't have the same values and beliefs. And that's a hard concept to work through and understand. We've started having those difficult conversations as it relates to race and differences in disabilities. We've always had the conversation about differences in disabilities in our house, but we also have always had the conversation with race. We do have mixed family members. We are not a clearly white family. And so my kids grow up around race as a difference, as normal. And other families don't grow up with that normally in their house. And so we've had to have those conversations now that the kids are older and start to understand about, there's people that treat other people differently because of the way they look. First of all, that was a shock to them. But you know what I mean? There are different values that different people have, and knowing and understanding that helps us cope a little bit with those differences in rules and behaviors, but it doesn't take it away. It's a hard concept for me to learn and understand why people steal and why people hurt other people. I may never understand that. And, but those are the conversations we have.
Well, thank you very much, Molly. And to keep this as
Hello,
a
Nancy speaking.
recording that people can listen to without getting monkey butt, we're going to go ahead and we're going to call an end to this, knowing that we're going to dangle out there the fact that you're going to be coming back in the fall. And we're going to be continuing this conversation on safety. We have at least 2 more geared up through the Autism Society of South Central Wisconsin. So thank you very much, Molly. We will see you again in the fall. And again, remember, you are free to call the Autism Society of South Central Wisconsin if you have questions, the regional centers. Please reach out and get help. There's people out there that want to help you. So thank you very much. I'm going to end the recording, say goodbye. Thank you so very much. Have a great rest of your evening.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.